The sentence wasn't for life. It was for death, a slow, green, and indifferent death. The doors of the rattling transport plane opened not to a prison yard, but to a vast suffocating emptiness 2 miles above the Amazon rainforest. The new inmate, a political dissident named Henry, was given a worn parachute, a small pack with a machete and a week's rations, and a final, chilling order from the guard. The jungle is your cell. The river is your warden. Survive if you can. It's 100 miles in any direction. God won't find you here. With a rough shove, he was pushed into the roaring wind, a tiny human figure cast into a green ocean of trees that stretched to the horizon. Another inmate, a quiet, bespectacled botanist named Julian, followed a second later, his face a mask of pure academic terror. Henry was about to learn that in a prison with no bars and no walls, the most dangerous enemy wasn't the guards, but the beautiful, indifferent, and infinitely hungry jungle itself. This was Devil's Island, not a physical place, but a brutal Darwinian process. A survival of the fittest sentence handed down by a corrupt regime in the 1970s. Political prisoners, intellectuals, and rebels weren't locked away. They were discarded, thrown into the world's largest, most unforgiving natural prison. The official story fed to the world press was that they had escaped during transport. The truth was, they were being fed to the green hell. Henry, a man whose spirit was forged in the fires of urban rebellion, found himself utterly, terrifyingly out of his element. The jungle was a vertical wall of green, a deafening cacophony of unseen things, where every shadow could hide a jaguar and every beautifully colored leaf could be a deadly poison. His meager rations, which he'd tried to conserve, were gone in 3 days, ruined by the crushing humidity. Hunger became a constant, gnawing companion. The jungle showed him the fate of others. He found the tattered remains of a parachute tangled in the high canopy, a silent testament to a failed landing. Later, he discovered a human skeleton, picked clean by piranhas in a shallow, deceptively peaceful-looking creek. Hope was the first thing to die in this place. Despair was the second. Madness was the third. He was on the verge of the third, hallucinating from hunger, when he stumbled into a small, miraculously clear patch of jungle. There, kneeling by a small, clever-looking shelter woven from palm fronds, was Julian, the botanist, who had been pushed from the plane after him. While Henry had been trying to fight the jungle, to conquer it with force, Julian had been listening to it, learning its language. "You're trying to impose your will on it," Julian said, his voice hoarse but calm, seeing the desperation in Henry's eyes. "You can't! You have to ask its permission to live." Julian, a man who had been imprisoned for his scientific knowledge, was now using that same knowledge as his shield and his sustenance. He showed Henry which strange-looking roots was safe to eat, which fat, white grubs were rich in protein, and which broadleaves could be used to collect and purify rainwater. He had used logic and observation to create a tiny island of order in a world of absolute, suffocating chaos. An uneasy alliance formed Henry, the pragmatist, the man of action and survival, and Julian, the scholar, the man of thought and reason. Julian's knowledge kept them alive. Henry's unyielding, burning will to escape kept them moving. Their goal was the river. It was their warden, but also their only potential road to freedom. They spent weeks trekking through the oppressive, humid darkness, battling torrential rains that turned the jungle floor into a muddy swamp, and swarms of insects that feasted on them. One night, as they huddled by a small, smoky fire to keep the predators at bay, Julian revealed his secret, the one thing he had managed to protect. He pulled a small, oilskin pouch from his pack. Inside, wrapped in a scrap of cloth, was not a weapon or a tool, but a handful of tiny, dark seeds. "They're from my wife's garden," he whispered, his voice thick with a memory of another, gentler world. "Marigolds. She always said they could grow anywhere." "Flowers are a fool's hope in a place that's trying to kill you," Angie grumbled, sharpening his machete. "Hope is the only thing they couldn't take from us before they pushed us out that door," Julian replied, clutching the seeds. "This is how I'll know I'm still human." Their journey was a testament to endurance. Henry was bitten by a venomous Ferdallan snake, its fangs sinking into his calf. For 3 agonizing days, he lay on the edge of death, his body racked with fever and convulsions. Julian refused to leave him. He used his knowledge of medicinal plants to brew a foul-tasting, dark green antidote that eventually broke the fever and saved his life. Henry, a man who had never trusted anyone but himself, found himself owing his life to the quiet, determined bot. The bond between them solidified. The jungle tested them in other ways. They stumbled upon the ruins of a forgotten pre-Columbian temple, its stones being slowly crushed and consumed by the roots of giant kapok trees. Inside, they found evidence of those who had come before them, crude shelters, desperate carvings on the walls counting the days, and the ghosts of failed escapes. It was a graveyard of hope, a monument to the jungle's ultimate patient victory over man. "We are not them," Henry said, his voice a low growl, seeing the despair in Julian's eyes. "We will get out." After what felt like an eternity of walking, they finally heard it. The distant, steady roar of moving water, the river. It was a vast, muddy brown serpent cutting through the endless green, a powerful and terrifying sight. Their relief was the river was a new kind of prison, patrolled by caimans and the occasional enforcer boat from the regime, and filled with flesh-eating fish. They needed a raft, a strong one. They spent another month on the riverbank, painstakingly harvesting bamboo stalks and weaving liana vines into rope, their hands raw and bleeding. It was a clumsy, fragile-looking vessel, but it was built with the sweat and sheer, stubborn refusal of two men who would not be broken. The day they launched their raft into the powerful current, Julian did something that made Henry question his sanity. He took a single, precious marigold seed and planted it in a small crack in the center of their raft, using a handful of mud from the riverbank. "For my wife," he said simply, his voice firm. "So a part of her makes this journey with us. So she knows I never gave up." Their journey downriver was a new circle of hell. They dodged treacherous rapids that threatened to tear their raft apart, and once had to hide for a full day in the mangroves as a government patrol boat motored slowly past. The raft became their world, a tiny, floating speck of hope in a vast, indifferent wilderness. And in the center of it, against all odds, nurtured by the rain and the sun, the marigold seed sprouted. It became their compass, their calendar, their reason. Every new leaf was a victory against the green hell, a tiny, vibrant flag of defiance. The sight of that small, growing shoot of life gave them a strength that food could not. One afternoon, as they navigated a treacherous bend, their raft was slammed by a submerged, half-rotten log. The impact threw Julian into the churning, piranha-infested water. Henry, without a second's thought for his own safety, dove in after him. Fighting the powerful current, he grabbed Julian, but the botanist was weak, his leg clearly broken in the collision. "Leave me!" Julian gasped, coughing up water, his face pale with shock. "You can still make it. Go. We get out of this together. Or not at all." Angus, a promise forged in the jungle's depths, and began pulling him back towards the splintered remains of their raft. They clung to the wreckage for 2 days, drifting helplessly, their strength fading. The marigold sprout, the only thing on the raft, still standing tall and unbroken. On the 3rd day, delirious with hunger and exhaustion, Henry saw it through a haze of fever. A small, wooden canoe, paddled silently and expertly by 2 men from a local, indigenous tribe. They had been found. The tribesmen, seeing their desperate state, the strange wreckage, and the impossible little flower growing in its center, took them in. They nursed them back to health in their village, a place that existed outside the world of prisons, politics, and cruel regimes. Henry, the hardened rebel, learned a new kind of freedom in the simple, respectful life of the tribe, a peace he had never known. Julian, the quiet scholar, finally found a home where his knowledge of the natural world was not a crime, but a revered gift. They had survived the prison without walls. They had escaped the green hell. Their story is a powerful, true testament to the collaboration between intellect and will, and the incredible, defiant power of a single, small seed of hope. It proves that a prison is not defined by its walls or its bars, but by the state of a man's spirit. If this true story of survival against all odds inspired you, please show your support by hitting that LIKE button. Subscribe and ring the notification bell for more incredible true stories of the human will to endure. Now, we have a question for you. In a desperate survival situation, what is more important, the will to fight or the knowledge to adapt? Let us know your choice in the comments below. Thank you for watching.